he was messing with. Jesus put the ball in his own court by asking, what is written in the law, Mr. Lawyer? What is your reading of it? The lawyer quoted Deuteronomy 6:5 and Leviticus 19:18. Those are the two verses this lawyer quoted. Deuteronomy 6:5 and Leviticus 19:18. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. Love your neighbor as yourself is only found in Leviticus 19:18. The other verse is from Deuteronomy. Jesus turned and told him, you have answered rightly. Do this and you will live. Do what? Many of us may not understand Jesus' statement yet. Do this and you shall live. You don't understand it yet. Do this and you will live. Remember, church, this man is a teacher. He's an expert in the law. He understood Jesus' statement. And perhaps many of us don't understand it yet. But do this, and you will live is the reality self-check. What the lawyer understands Jesus to say is, you will have to enter life if you keep these commandments. But, church, is there anyone who can love God with all their heart, with all their soul, with all their strength, with all their mind, and love their neighbor as their self? Let me see the hands. Can anybody do that? The lawyer is faced with the implications of the law and its requirements. Can we love God with all of our heart? Amen. With all of our soul? All of our strength? And love God? Love our neighbor as ourselves? Church, but the Bible tells us, the story tells us, but the lawyer wanting to justify himself, he asked Jesus another question, a follow-up question. And who is my neighbor? So what does the lawyer want to justify in this text? Who is my neighbor? The lawyer wants to explain himself to Jesus under the Mosaic law. Love your neighbor as yourself. We need to understand his motive, church. The lawyer's justification is that he wanted to know who he could love and who he could not. As far as he was concerned, he loved his Jewish brothers and sisters according to the law in Leviticus. The lawyer understands, his understanding of the law is that we can, Moses said we can only love our brothers and sisters, the Jewish brothers and sisters. You ain't calling me to go love no Gentile. It sounds like, what if I don't have dealing with a black man and a white man? Do I still have to love him or her? What if my neighbor is a foreigner with a different accent, eating dogs and cats in Winston-Salem and Ohio? Do I still have to love him? What if my neighbor came to the United States with an improper no documents at all. And he's right there near me. Can I still love him? The lawyer had forgotten, like many of us do. When God instructed Moses, saying, treat strangers and foreigners residing among you with love and respect. And then he emphasized that you were once strangers and foreigners in Egypt. Exodus 22:21. Then Jesus called the lawyer's attention to our story that we find in verse 30 to 37. Church, it is not what makes us true neighbors, but who our neighbors are. Amen. Do we know our neighbors? Where do we find our neighbors? How do they look? And what zip codes do they live in? The man that was robbed, church, was beaten up there, was a Jew. But how do we know that? Because Samaritans do not worship in Jerusalem, but in Mount Gerizim, up Mount Moriah, where Abraham went to offer Isaac as a sacrifice. Jesus tells us, church, a certain man came down from Jerusalem to Jericho. The man was also returning from worship in Jerusalem. The Jew often traveled the road from Jerusalem to Jericho to avoid passing through Samaria. I don't know how many of you have been living in Winston-Salem for maybe 50, 60 years ago. And this is a reality check. If you live here 60 years ago, there were streets here in Winston-Salem that no black people move in by yourself. St. Andrews, our other church, sister church, was owned by white people. And no black men dared to go in our community by themselves in the 60s, early 60s. The very church that was there, you dare not walk in that church. Where today we are pastoring. 62 years ago, don't try. Don't go in that 1840 Butler Street. It was a forbidden ground. Let alone go there to say you came there to worship with them. But if the man was a Jew, why did the priest and the Levite, church folks, simply look and pass by their own fellow Jew? Did they forget Leviticus 19:18, as we often do as a church? Church, we can read the Bible, attend worship services, Sunday school classes, prayer meetings, take Holy Communion, and still not have love for our brothers and sisters sitting in the pew next to us. No, you ain't hear nothing yet. We can greet one another, smile and shake someone's hand in the church, maybe not this church, and still wish they were dead and gone. Church, we can greet one another, smile with each other. We can claim to have forgiven from our own hearts what our brothers and sisters might have done to us and hurt our feelings. But yesterday, we never let go of the pain in our hearts every time we see them. Do we love our neighbors? Have you ever heard someone say in the church, maybe not this church, I just cannot stand him or her. And if I had my own way, I want you to end that statement. Church, God called the Levites to intercede on behalf of the people in the temple. And the priests were appointed to help the Levites in the administration of the priesthood in the temple on behalf of the people. These were church folks. Do we not also have been reminded in the book of Peter, but you are a chosen generation and a royal priesthood? Are we not priests? it is obvious, church, that these two religious hypocrites came up to Jerusalem to worship, and they were on their way down from worship, and they couldn't have compassion on their own Jewish brother. And I don't care, church, how we feel about ourselves. We must remember we were once broken and beat up people. Amen. Paul reminds us, and ye have made alive, we were dead in trespasses and sin, in which you once walked according to the course of this world, according to the prince of the power of the air. Church, it does not matter whether we come to church or not, but if our spiritual journey is nothing more than going down from Jerusalem, from our Jerusalems to our Jerichos, we lose sight of the condition of others when they are down. Church, the priests and the Levites are people we have in our churches, maybe not this church, who pass by their neighbors every day. I don't know whether you passed by one this morning. Do we see the church in our streets and cities? Church is not a building. Church is people. We do church not when we come to this building. Amen. I know you never heard that before. Come on. We do church not when we come to this building, but when we meet people outside the church building. After we leave our homes and enter the world around us, that's when church happens. Amen. Church happens in your home. Church happens at your workplace. Church happens when you go to the grocery store. Amen. The Samaritan man had his church right on Jericho's road. Amen. The Samaritan man in our text represents Jesus, who risked it all to give us life when we were stripped and wounded by the thief, the devil. The thieves and robbers in this text represent the institution of spiritual wickedness. The Levite and the priest represent the don't care and mind your own business, so-called church folks in other churches. Perhaps the Samaritan prayed that morning before getting out and said these words: I am nobody trying to tell anybody about somebody. Who can save anybody? So Lord, use me today to help somebody. Amen. Is that our prayer? Every morning? So who is our neighbor? There are hundreds, if not thousands, who are in our cities, in our towns, who are walking physically sound, but are spiritually stripped, beaten, wounded, and half dead. Amen. Let me ask this question. Do we have some people in our families who are stripped, wounded, and half dead? Some people in other churches, not this church, know that their daughters, their grandsons and granddaughters, their cousins, their sisters, their brothers, their best friends, their husbands, and their wives are stripped, beaten up, wounded by thieves, Satan himself, and are half dead. But do we pass by on the other side to avoid what it would take to give them the most essential regimens that gives life and healing to them? Now, if you think I'm just making this up, if you don't have anybody in the church, some of y'all left your church, y'all left homes this morning and left some people sitting down there. They know you're coming to church. I know some of y'all got children and grandchildren who will stay home and say, I ain't ready to go to no church, and they'll sit down there and you say, well, it's America. You got to let the children decide what they want. We need to decide for this country as a church what God wants. And we have the power and authority to do that. Amen. In this city and in our country, in our homes, in our communities. Amen. That's what God is calling us to do. Every week, we meet stripped, wounded, half-dead people in our street corners, at work, at grocery stores, restaurants, sport grounds, and the why that we go to exercise. Do we just pass by without telling them about the love of Jesus? How many of us have talked to at least one person since last week when the message we heard talk about our greatest joy? Amen. Since after conference, there's not a day that I don't go out to talk to somebody. I make that as a top priority. Can I say this? Each of you giving here, sitting here, are giving 168 hours a week. Each of us. How do I know that? 24/7. You multiply it, what gives you? 168 hours. That's what God gives you. He don't take any from Daryl and give it to his brother Adrian. He gave them 168, 168. It depends on both of them how they want to use that 168. But let me ask you, church. You got 168. Let's assume that you take 1 hour to come here for choir practice every Wednesday. Take another hour, come to a Bible study if you can ever show up anyway. Amen. Because Bible study is no important to the church no more. Well, the devil got them on that. Because the Spirit will not work without the Word. All right. You got 168, you just took 2 hours out of it, you got 166 left. We're talking about tithe and offering. That's the real tithe and offering. God gives you 168 hours, and you can afford to give him one. Can I say this, church? I'm intentional about this. I'm intentional about this. Let me ask this question. Say, for instance, if you were to say to yourself today, I'm going to take 1 hour. I always use 167 and give 1 hour to God on Sunday. Maybe there are some people here who are in that category and have not taken half hour. Let's start with half hour, 30 minutes, to stop at a grocery store to talk to somebody. And you make that as a promise that you're going to do it. Go down to Food Lion or to Walmart. I'm going to just stand in the corner and see what I can talk to somebody about Jesus. 30 minutes and I'm going in my car and go. Every week. You know how many hours you give to God that week? That month? One time a week, you give God another 2 hours of your time. Isn't that a blessing? There is not a single day that I don't go out to speak to not less than 10 persons a day. Go out. When I get out, and I pray about it. But let me tell you this. There's a secret on this. We can't do this on our own. Don't just get up in the morning and say to yourself, let me eat my breakfast and walk out and go talk to somebody. You are entering a territory that you don't even understand what it is. The moment you make up your mind and say, I'm going to talk to Jesus, I'm going to talk to somebody about Jesus, you You got 5 or 6 demons assigned to you already.
Amen.
If you were here last Sunday when I talked about the preaching of the gospel is dangerous, it's a hard job,
Amen.
I want to say that to you. It is not easy. This preaching cost Jesus' own life. The preaching of this good news killed all of the 12 except one, John.
Amen.
Thousands and millions have died for this gospel. It's a dangerous job.
Oh, yes.
But guess what? We are more than conquerors through him who loves us. The fight is not ours, it's the Lord's. It's not by might, it's not by power, but it says by the Spirit of the Lord. Church, I still remember the words of this elderly white man I met in Greensboro who said, "We are all God's children."
Amen.
Thank you for being a good Samaritan. So here this morning is our new revelation in our text. And I want you to remember it. We cannot truly love our neighbors without risk, sacrifice, time, and money. That's the scary part. That's the dangerous part. You see the Samaritan man? He didn't really know that the robbers were close there. They were watching him. He probably didn't know that. But he risked it all. He didn't care what was going to happen to him. He did it. Church, we cannot truly love our neighbors without taking risk,
Amen.
without making some sacrifice and time and money. The Samaritan man did not get down off his donkey. He got off his donkey and put the sick man, the beaten, broken man, on his donkey and walked behind the donkey, took him to a restaurant and paid for the food for his stay and his care, and told the man, "I will come back. If there's anything extra you spend, I'll pay for it." Do you love your neighbor? Church, eternal life comes not when we want to gain life, but when we learn to lose our own lives for the sake of others. How many of us want to do that? That is exactly what the Samaritan man did. That man is no other person than Jesus.
Yeah.
Jesus comes to us this morning with the same question. So which of these three do you think was a good neighbor to him who fed among the thieves? That question comes to us. The lawyer replied, "He who showed mercy on him." Then Jesus said to him, "Go and do likewise." Can I ask, before I take my seat, if Jesus showed us mercy when we were also stripped, wounded, and left half dead on Jericho's road, on our Jericho's road, are we not to show mercy on those who are stripped and wounded by sin in the word? There's someone sitting out here telling me, and maybe thinking this morning, he said, "Well, there's a new gospel you're preaching right here. Pastor, do you want me to? You're talking about America. People are aggressive, you know. You want me to go tell somebody Jesus loved them?" I mean, you look at the people in their faces, they don't look like somebody who want to hear the gospel. I've been, several times I go in the street to talk to people. When I show the card to them and they tell me, he said, "Who is that?" I said, "This is by Jesus." He said, "A man looked at my face in the gas station on Wharton Street and told me, 'Let me tell you, my friend, I don't want to hear about Jesus and I don't want him to know about me.'" And I just turned around and I said to him, "Thank you." You want to risk it? Let me tell you, for those who were not here last Sunday, willing to risk it all. And if it's God's way that somebody in this church must get saved and be able to know that God will allow me to be shot dead or be beaten and taken to the hospital and all my bones are broken and I'm not able to walk, for somebody to understand the risk it means, if that's God's way for me, let it be. But I'm not going to turn back, and I will not stop telling people in the street that Jesus loved them. Can I say this before I sit? People out there may have no hope. Just like that Samaritan man laying down on our road all by himself, just waiting for a moment to take his last breath and be gone. There are many people who you're going to pass by this week. But here's what I want you to do. I don't want you to be a wishy-washy person. I want you to make this intentional. Jesus himself said you have to pray for it. You can't do it by your own.
Amen.
Are you going to pray and ask God to give you strength so that you can talk to somebody this week about the love of Jesus? Jesus is calling on you and me to be the roadside rescue Samaritan man. Will we risk it all and not pass by on the other side? Shall we pray? Gracious God, this is a new teaching and a new preaching, perhaps in a long time. But I stand here knowing that you are with this church, and everyone who comes here loves you. They will not be here without showing their love to be here. But sometimes we can love things not because we want to. Just like the lawyer, he had different intention. And I don't know who is here who has a different intention about what really he's coming to church or she's coming to church for. But God called us here for one purpose. The purpose is to be our neighbors' keepers. To go out there, to love our neighbors, to be a witness. I pray that the Spirit of God will not let anyone here under the sound of my voice, even those who watch by YouTube, that they may make a decision to prayerfully consider and intentionally prayer to be an instrument of grace